Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, it is time for the best part of the month, and that is picking our monthly TBR. And I think November is going to be one of our best monthly TBRs because I just did a huge book haul. I will make sure to link that video above and below. But that means that the TBR shelves are fully stacked right now, and I have so many books that are catching my eye at the moment. I honestly think it's going to be hard to narrow down the 8 books that I actually want to read. I have the TBR board game ready to go, so make sure that you go grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's choose my November TBR. Here's the TBR board game that we're going to be using. Currently I'm sitting at go, and we're going to use 1 dice to get across the board. Time for roll number 1. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you guys know me at all, you know that I love to read on my Kindle, so this is a great start to the TBR. And like I always say, now is the fun part for actually picking our books. And this month might be a little bit different because on my top shelves, I have all of my physical TBR. I don't know the last time I had this many books on my physical TBR. Generally, I like to do a solid mix of physical TBR, some audiobooks, some books from my library, things like that. But I think this month we're gonna try and stick to as much as possible the books I have behind me. But since Kindle Unlimited and library reads are still on the board for me to land on, let's go through just a few that I have in mind. Generally, I keep a lot of options on the table with library and Kindle, but with the focus being on my physical TBR, I'm gonna kind of give you like my top 3 of each. For Kindle Unlimited, I would love to maybe focus on the Shadow and Bone trilogy. While that was on last month's TBR, I actually haven't gotten to Shadow and Bone just quite yet. But if we add this series to the list, I'm just going to work under the assumption that I do read Shadow and Bone and would be looking towards Siege and Storm. I also recently just downloaded A Forbidden Alchemy by Stacey mcewan. I think this was only just recently added to Kindle Unlimited, but I've heard a lot of other booktubers talk about this book and that it was very highly rated. Or my final option could be that I finally finished the Windy City series and get to Rewind It Back by Liz Tomford. And as for my library TBR, my library holds right now are absolutely stacked. I could get to The Blonde Who Came In From the Cold by Ali Carter. This is book 2 in an interconnected contemporary romance series which follows the blonde identity. I read it last year and it was this fun spy rom-com which was able to be read so quickly, and I do just love Ali Carter. So that could be a quick, easy one to get to. I do have the audiobook for Blood Over Brighthaven by Wang, which I do also have that on my physical TBR. I've said these last few months that that book specifically feels like November to me, but now as I'm approaching November, I don't know if I have the mental capacity for this book, but it's something to keep in mind. And then I do also have the audiobook for the book we're going to be reading in my book club this month, which is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. So if I wanted an excuse to add my book club book to my TBR, I could do so through the library. But since Kindle Unlimited was our first roll, out of those 3 books that I just mentioned to you guys, I think the one I'm the most interested in at this moment is going to be A Forbidden Alchemy by Stacey mcewan. The blurb says that this is a stunning, slow burn romantasy that follows a fated pair who uncover a world-changing secret and are thrust into a violent class war, navigating loss, love, and devastating betrayals. But I know that there's this class war going on between artisans and craftsmen. The artisans are the elites and the leaders of this world, while the craftsmen are more of like the working class. And I think whenever children reach the age of 12, they take this test to determine if they're going to be an artisan or a craftsman for their future. But they learn that this test isn't all that it seems, and artisans aren't actually born, they're chosen. And this leads our 2 main characters on drastically different paths, but they come back together following a craftsman revolution. And I'm excited to see where the book goes from there. This is the start of a trilogy, but it did only just come out this year, so this is the only book that has been published thus far. But I think this is going to be good, and I have a lot of high hopes for this one. Time for roll number 2. Another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Letter generator. This can take us in a lot of different directions. I'm hopeful about this next prompt being a letter generator since I have so many books on my physical TBR to choose from. I swear months past this has only generated the most obscure letter where I only have 1 or 2 choices. I'm curious to see what will happen this month, and hopefully we have a few to choose from. But I'm gonna go ahead and spin the wheel, and this will either point us to the title of a book or an author's first or last name. Looks like this landed on R. I feel like we've landed on much weirder letters than R, and I already have a book in mind that I would love to get to that starts with R. So let's go ahead and check out all of our options. Looks like we have 3 options and they are all fantasy books, but with drastically different vibes. So first I have book 2 in the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. I love the Harry Potter movies. For some reason, I've never actually read the books. I picked up book 1 last winter time and I'd love to get to books 2 and 3 at the end of this year. So if I wanted something very easy, this is a good contender. Next I have a YA pirate romantasy, which is called The Night Weaver by R.M. Gray. This is one of the books that I just recently picked up in that haul, and luckily I got this very stunning special edition. I think this book is going to be amazing. I have a lot of high hopes for it, and it is the start of a new series. But if I'm being really honest with myself, my interest in this is no comparison to this final book, which is Red City by Marie Lu. This was the first book that I actually ended up picking up at the bookstore, and the premise of this sounds so freaking interesting. The bottom of the blurb says, "The Godfather meets the Magician" in the sweeping adult debut from Marie Lu, a dark and deadly contemporary fantasy of magical warfare, star-crossed ambition, and the pursuit of perfection at any cost, set in a glittering alternate Los Angeles. Now, while it lists the comp titles as The Godfather and The Magicians, what this book was giving me was Olivia Blake's One for My Enemy meets Jade City. It's giving me Jade City because there are 2 warring crime syndicates dealing in the form of sand, but 2 individuals on either side are kind of giving star-crossed lovers, and that's where One for My Enemy comes into play. I genuinely think I'm going to be obsessed with this book. I feel like it's kind of a good omen that this book actually came out on my birthday. So I think I'm just gonna follow my gut on this one and add Red City by Marie Lu to the TBR. Time for roll number 3. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like we're gonna have a lot of fun with this TBR because we got TBR prompt jar. For book 3, we get to use the TBR prompt jar, and this can lead us in a lot of different directions. So I'm kind of hoping that this ends up being a free pick, but let's shake these around and see what we get. And let's choose this one. Keeping it short and sweet, the prompt says blue cover. I feel like honestly this could come from either my romance or my fantasy shelves, so let's see what's catching my eye. Okay, it looks like we're gonna have 4 options to choose from. I'm gonna talk about this one first because it is a fantasy, and I don't think I'm gonna go for a fantasy on this pick, but that would be Heavenly Bodies by Amani Ariu. I'm so excited to get to this book, but considering that we already have 2 fantasies already on the TBR, I don't think that we need to go 3 for 3. I think I need to choose one of my romance picks instead. So out of my 3 romances, I have Startup and Interconnected Standalone series, which is Next of Kin by Hannah Bonham Young. I do really love this author. I read Out on a Limb by her earlier this year and gave it a 5 stars. For a heartwarming emotional read, this would definitely be the pick. If I want something a little bit more spicy and has come with a 5-star rating from my best friend, I could also go for Bossman by V. Keeland. This is a workplace romance where she gets involved with her billionaire boss. My friend has been dying for me to read this because she did really enjoy it. And finally, I have The Lamplighters Bookshop by Sophie Austen. This is another book that I just recently hauled. I think this is going to be very cozy and heartwarming, but this is reading very winter to me, so I think I'm going to save this for an upcoming month where this would be better suited. So out of these 2, the main deciding factor for me is, do I want to start a series or do I want to read a standalone? And at this moment in time, in the other books that I've already picked so far for the month, I think I'm going to go with the standalone and choose Bossman by V. Keeland. Okay, so our blurb says, he's her billionaire boss, she's his weakness. Reese was hiding in the bathroom hallway of a restaurant, leaving a message for her best friend to save her from her awful date when a gorgeous stranger overhears and offers her some dating advice. She proceeds to tell him to mind his own damn business, his own tall, handsome, full of himself damn business, and goes back to her miserable date, though she can't help but sneak hidden glances at the condescending jerk on the other side of the room. When Chase Parker and his equally hot date suddenly appear at Reese's table, she's sure he's going to rat her out. But instead, he pretends that he and Reese are old friends and joins them, telling elaborate, embarrassing stories about their fake childhood. And her date suddenly goes from boring to bizarrely exciting. After they part ways, Reese finds herself thinking about Chase more than she wants to admit, even though she knows she'll never see him again. What are the chances in a city with 8 million people? Then again, what are the chances a month later he winds up being her new boss? I think this is going to be fluffy. I think this is going to be cute. I'm pretty sure this author does like to write her spice as well, but I haven't read anything by V. Keeland, so I'm excited to give this one a shot. Time for roll number 4. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. fantasy, which is perfect for the fall time. Fourth book pick is going to be a fantasy, which is a good thing and a bad thing because I have so many fantasies to choose from, but naturally I have so many starts to series and I'm already in the middle of like 18 or 19 series, so we're going to need to be a little strategic about this one. If I want to achieve a physical fantasy that is not the start of a series, that only leaves me with a few options. One of those being a standalone, which I did mention earlier, and that is Blood Over Brighthaven by Wang. I am so incredibly intimidated about this book. I've heard that Wang loves to write a gut punch, and I just don't know emotionally if I can really handle a gut punch right now, but I think that the writing is going to be absolutely exquisite. And I do have the audiobook through my library. And if I'm struggling to get into a book or I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to keep up, the audiobook is such a huge help to me. So I'm going to be brave. And I'm gonna add Blood Over Brighthaven to the November TBR. And I'm pretty sure that this is giving fantastical dark academia because the top of the blurb says, the first woman ever admitted to a prestigious order of mages unravels a secret conspiracy that could change the practice of magic forever, and the standalone dark fantasy from the author of The Sword of Kaigen. Sayana has devoted every waking moment to the study of magic, fueled by a mad desire to achieve the impossible, to be the first woman ever admitted to the High Magistracy at the University of Magics and Industry. When Sayana finally passes the qualifying exam and becomes a high mage, she finds her challenges have just begun. Her new colleagues are determined to make her feel unwelcome, and instead of a qualified lab assistant, they gave her a janitor. At first, mage and outsider have a fractious relationship, but working together they uncover an ancient secret that could change the course of magic forever, if it doesn't get them killed first. What I've heard is really unique about this book is I think that the magic is sourced through like these magical typewriters, which you can kind of see on the cover of the book. I think just adding to the uniqueness of this story. So I am tentatively looking forward to reading this book, but I know that I'm gonna have to really set the expectations correctly and prepare myself emotionally for this story. We're about to make our first full loop across the board, so let's see what we get for roll number 5. 1, which actually brings us right to go, and we will need to roll again. Another 1. Looks like it's going to be another fantasy. Naturally, the 5th book pick is another fantasy book. We already have 3 fantasy books on this TBR, so I need to be even more strategic with this pick than I was with the last one. And since I was brave with our last book pick, I'm going to be 0% brave with this one. And I'm gonna add the shortest, sweetest book that I actually have on my physical TBR, and that would be book 2 in the Harry Potter series. This is literally just over 300 pages. It's written for children, so I think I should be able to manage this one. But this is the epitome of why I love these monthly TBRs. I would have never guessed that I would have been adding book 2 in the Harry Potter series to my November TBR, but alas, here we are. The first 3 movies in the series are my absolute favorite. I just love the cozy nostalgic vibes they give. So I'm hoping that that's the same with this book. It's going to be an absolute little shorty to get through, considering some of the other books that I've decided to add. Time for roll number 6. 3. 1, 2, 3. Funnily enough, we landed on this the first time we went around the board, but it's time for another Kindle Unlimited pick. Book number 6, another Kindle Unlimited pick. Now thinking back to the original 3 that I mentioned earlier, I do have 1 fantasy book remaining and 1 romance. Call me crazy with how this TBR is already going, but I think I'm more inclined to add the fantasy book pick and continue on with the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. As I mentioned earlier, I actually haven't gotten to Shadow and Bone just quite yet, but I am hopeful that I will finish that by the end of October. So I'm going to tentatively add book 2 in the series, Siege and Storm. Now that being said, if I don't actually end up getting to Shadow and Bone in October, I'll just adjust that TBR pick back to Shadow and Bone because I really do want to start the series. In my October TBR, I read the blurb of it and it sounded so intriguing. I really don't know why I've been putting this one off for so long. What I was getting from the blurb is that there's kind of this darkness overtaking their world, but after our FMC's best friend is brutally attacked, she reveals a dormant power that saves his life, a power that could be the key to setting her war-ravaged country free. She's whisked away to the royal court to be trained as a member of the Grisha. Yet nothing in this lavish world is what it seems. With darkness looming and an entire kingdom depending on her untamed power, Alina will have to confront the secrets of the Grisha and the secrets of her heart. This is also YA, so this is a little bit less daunting to get through, and overall I just feel like that premise sounds super interesting. So book 6 is going to be continuing on with the Shadow and Bone trilogy and reading Siege and Storm. Time for roll number 7. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Physical TBR, which will be very easy considering how many books I have on my physical TBR at the moment. Okay, we are getting through this. Time for book number 7, which is just simply a physical TBR book pick. Should be easy enough, and I know for certain that I'm staying far away from this section. I do not need to add another fantasy to this month. So let's go ahead and look at my romances. If I wanted something witchy, cozy, and heartwarming, that would be A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. I've read another book by this author and really enjoyed it. So far, I've heard pretty good reviews about this one. The blurb says that this is a whimsical and heartwarming novel about a witch who has a second chance to get her magical powers and her life back on track. So this is definitely a book I'd like to get to sooner rather than later. However, the book that I have had my eye on and I know I was going to get on this monthly TBR some way, somehow, was If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. This is the very much viral Gilmore Girls inspired 90s rom-com book that is blowing up right now. Even though this is a 500-page romance, a little bit chunky, I've heard that it's so worth it for the slow burn friends to lovers romance that we see unfold. Just about everyone has been giving this 5 stars, and I'm feeling a little bit left out at the moment. So I'm just going to be honest with you guys and get straight to the point that I'm going to add If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia to the monthly TBR. And time for our final roll of the monthly TBR. 3. 1, 2, 3. Library. I love receiving this prompt. And finally, for the last book pick, which is going to be something from my library. Thinking back to the top 3 that I had on my library TBR, we already found a way to add Blood Over Brighthaven, so that one is checked off. So that would leave either The Hating Game by Sally Thorne or The Blonde Who Came In From the Cold by Allie Carter. I would love to get to this Allie Carter book, but I feel like this is one that I could read at any time. Since I do have a deadline with The Hating Game, I think I'm maybe going to go ahead and prioritize that on the TBR, since there's going to be a lot of reading that needs to happen in November. Now, The Hating Game is a book talk classic. I'm pretty sure this came out quite a few years ago, and there's already been a movie adaptation of this, which I've heard good reviews about, but it says that this is a hilarious and sexy workplace comedy all about that thin, fine line between love and hate. Lucy Hutton has always been certain that the nice girl can get the corner office. She's charming, accommodating, and prides herself on being loved by everyone. Everyone except for the coldly efficient, impeccably attired, physically intimidating Joshua, and the feeling is mutual. Trapped in a shared office together 50 or 60 hours a week, they become entrenched in an addictive, ridiculous, never-ending game of one-upmanship. Lucy can't let Joshua beat her at anything, especially when a huge new promotion goes up for the taking. If Lucy wins this game, she'll be Joshua's boss. If she loses, she'll resign. So why is she suddenly having steamy dreams about Joshua and dressing for work like she's got a hot date? Maybe Lucy Hutton doesn't hate Joshua, and maybe he doesn't hate her either. Or maybe this is just another game. I think this is going to be so fun. A little hate to love workplace rivalry, maybe somewhat giving some similar tropes to Emily Henry's Book Lovers, which is one of my favorite books of the year. I think this is going to be silly and cute, and the plan for the book club is that we read it, debrief it, and then also watch the movie together. So if you guys want to join in on the book club, add this to your November TBR, and if you do read it, make sure to let me know what you guys think of this. But I feel like I'm going to end up thanking myself for adding the book club book to the TBR, so it looks like The Hating Game is our 8th book pick. So thank you so much for watching this monthly TBR. I hope you guys had fun watching me use the TBR board game. So let's do a little rapid fire review of the books I have in store for November. First was a Kindle Unlimited book, and that's going to be A Forbidden Alchemy by Stacey mcewan. From there, the letter generator generated the letter R, and I'm going to pick up Red City by Marie Lu. Next, the TBR jar chose a blue cover, so I picked up Bossman by Keeland. For a fantasy book pick, I chose Blood Over Brighthaven by Emma Wang. And my next fantasy book pick was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling. For the next Kindle Unlimited pick, I chose Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. Book number 7 was from my physical TBR, so I chose If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. And finally, for my library choice, that's going to be The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. And that is the end of my November TBR. Make sure to go down below, like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye guys!